Chairman of the Louisiana Gaming Control Board, Ronnie Jones, is back. Hey, Mr. Ronnie, welcome to Keel. How you doing this morning?
Morning, folks. How are you guys?
You know, amidst all of this, I don't know if I ever mentioned my brother works at El Dorado, and in the midst of all this stuff, I said, you know, you could just why don't they just clean the chips? And he said they'd melt. They're made of clay. That's true, isn't it? I guess.
Well, but there's a business in Las Vegas that does that, and their business has spiked over the last 3 or 4 weeks. I read that a couple of days ago. Something you don't think about, but everything that a person touches becomes vulnerable to transmitting the virus. So it makes sense to me.
So talk to us about the meetings leading up to the decision to close the boats, the casinos in Louisiana. I would reckon between the get-togethers and the phone calls, those, to put it mildly, that must have been some really interesting stuff.
Interesting and stressful. Actually, we began a couple of weeks ago talking to general managers around the state about what their protocols were for maintaining, safety and health conditions in the casinos, and they already had plans in place. And I have to tell you, if you walked around casinos before they closed, they were diligent about wiping public areas down. I mean, the rails on escalators, elevator buttons, slot machines, chairs, tables, anything that people touched, they were wiping them down. And to their credit, I went to a couple of shopping malls this weekend. They're not wiping anything down in those places. But at least casinos were making an effort, and I applaud them for that. So I talked to those guys in the couple of weeks prior to the governor's first executive order that capped capacity at 250. That presented a whole new challenge for us. And we had to rely on state police to collaborate with us and come up with a plan on how we might try and keep casinos operating and people employed, suppress the transmission of the virus, and comply with the governor's executive order. It was hard. The first night was extremely difficult. I'm sorry.
What tipped the scales for you?
The two things. One, the rapid rise in the number of infections in Louisiana. I'm just looking at the charts, and the New Orleans area has the second highest per capita city infection rate in the entire country. And there are a lot of people who've come from central Louisiana, North Louisiana to Mardi Gras, and they're just not symptomatic yet. There are people in North Louisiana walking around with the virus today. So I knew, this was a public health crisis that we had to get our hands around. And secondly, the cap of 250 was just unworkable. And over the weekend, it dropped again. It's dropped 3 times now. Health is more important than anything else. There are so many sub-stories and subplots to this narrative. I mean, people whose jobs are on the line, people who have to pay car notes, send kids to school. But the health issue is such that took predominance. And I came to that realization late Saturday night, early Sunday, engaged the governor's office in some intense discussions, and just said, look, guys, we have to pull the trigger early Monday morning. Let's, give me the authority to do it.
I would assume I would assume in your job, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you to the very end, you were probably looking for a way to keep things open. Would I be incorrect? And you finally said, no, we got to go this way.
It was a delicate balancing act. I mean, this is heartbreaking from the health side and from the financial side. But these are going to be tough times all over the state for all kinds of industries. It just so happens that the industry I regulate is gaming, and I'm sensitive to the thousands of people who are employed in the gaming industry in Louisiana, but I'm also sensitive to their health. They're just as likely to be exposed to a customer who has a virus, or as the customers are to cross-contaminate themselves. You just have to make a decision that's in the best interest of the employees and the patrons. And I think the other thing that really put me over the line was watching a level of irresponsibility in my hometown of New Orleans this past weekend. Despite the fact that we have so many infections in the city of New Orleans, there were crowds gathering for St. Patrick's Day. And I'm watching on TV young girls kissing old men and drinking out of their beer cups. And I'm thinking, this is incredibly irresponsible. At some point, you have to be able to control the behavior of people, and this is one of those cases. It's a public health emergency.
The Indian casinos in Louisiana, how many of them are there, and are they under this order?
No, they're not. The state has no authority. The state gaming control board has no authority over those 3 tribal casinos. There's 3 full-blown tribal casinos, one in Kinder, one down between Morgan City and Lafayette, and one in Marksville. 2 of the 3, as of last night, had voluntarily closed to comply with our order. I've not gotten any word on the casino in Marksville, Paragon. I don't know if their tribal leaders have, their tribal council has elected to close or not. Mississippi and I talked, the regulator over there and I talked throughout the day yesterday. We were anxious to see who was going to close first. We closed first. They followed by midday.
Ronnie, let's talk money, or more specifically, lost money. This is not going to be an easy one, is it?
No, it's not. The market in Northwest Louisiana was already challenged before this. Riverboat gaming last calendar year was down by a couple of percentage points. That's distressing. But this closure will result just on the casino side in $1.5 billion of revenue to the state every day they're shut down. If you factor in video poker, and we issued that order later in the day, but they closed down at midnight last night as well. For the 4-week period extending into April, state's looking at probably a loss of $60 million in revenue, 60. And that's scary, but it's especially scary when you look at the price of oil. Every dollar drop in the price of oil is a loss of state revenue somewhere in the neighborhood of, I've heard, $11 to $13 million. So it's a double whammy coming for the state. But you know what? The governor made the right call. They made good decisions. We've got good people giving us advice on the health and safety side, and it was the right thing to do. We'll survive this.
What's going to happen with the employees? I know they all want to hear what you're saying to them this morning.
Yeah, that's a company by company decision. I think the majority of the casinos are going to attempt to pay most of their employees for a 2-week period, but that is a company by company decision. If they are put on the street and they're unemployed, they need to file for those unemployment benefits. They need to try and maintain some revenue for their families to keep their families fed, keep things propped up. It's going to be critically important. I know these are anxious times. I can't imagine how anxious some of those employees of the gaming industry are out there. And don't forget, it's not just about the employees sitting in those casinos and on the gaming floor. It's all the support people as well. And how much money is spent in local businesses, liquor, food, flowers, other services, repairmen. There's a ripple effect in the economy when you take casinos out of their regular routine business operational mode, and it's going to be tough all the way around. These are tough days ahead, guys. This is a challenge for us. We're going to overcome it, but it's going to be hard.
2 weeks is the first order. How soon before you make a decision to extend it?
I anticipate that the governor is going to want to extend it to what his deadline is, and the reason mine was 2 weeks. We wanted to take it at 2 weeks and then reevaluate it. His order came later in the day. I am fairly certain that he's going to mandate the continued closure until April 13th for all video poker and casino operations.